Welcome to the Pharmacy Frontiers podcast. We're excited to come to you today with Cassie Heffern and talk to her about her journey to balance her family, her work, and her professional advocacy. It'll be a great conversation for us over the next 25 minutes. I'm Daniel Good, and I'll serve as your co-host today. Tim Mitchell's out on assignment actually administering flu vaccines today, so we look forward to having him back next week. But let me remind everyone that the Pharmacy Frontiers podcast is available for streaming on your favorite podcast streaming app, whether it be Apple, Podbean, Spotify, or even YouTube. The Pharmacy Frontiers podcast is a podcast dedicated to the pharmacy profession. The comments and opinions shared today are those of myself, and our guests are not official statements of the MPA, Mercy, Mitchell Family Pharmacy, or St. Luke's Health System. And I'm very excited to have with us in studio today, Cassie Heffern. I've had the opportunity to work with Cassie and to observe her journey as it progresses through her career and be a part of that success story. So I know we're going to have some great conversations today about how she's able to be an active participant in the pharmacy profession, not only in her local community, but also across the state and now across the country. So please welcome Cassie Heffern.
Hello, I'm glad to be here. I've been watching your guys' podcast, and I'm really excited that I get to be one of those individuals to share some of my journey throughout the time. So I especially like being here with you, Daniel, just because you've seen me through this progression of everything. So I'm happy to be here.
Yes, you are definitely one of our success stories here in the state. I've really enjoyed watching your career blossom into a very successful role. And I want to get into some of that today as well. But give us a little bit, walk us through kind of how you got where you are. Give us a little bit of that career progression. I know that I know where you started out down in Springfield before, but let's walk the listeners through how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, I was thinking about starting from the beginning. I was born and raised in Sedalia, Missouri. I grew up in a well-loved, but on the poorer side of life in there. So I really wanted to pursue a career that would allow for my future family to be financially stable. I did some job shadowing in high school, some different healthcare careers. And I enjoyed my time most with a family friend named Shirley Cribbs, who was an independent pharmacy owner. I ended up working for her for a few summer breaks during the beginning of school in there. And so I was able to be accepted into UMKC's provisional program. And so I did all of pharmacy school in the 6 years right out of high school, and graduated in 2011. Throughout a lot of my journey, I thought I'd become a community pharmacist like Shirley. But things kind of changed over time in there. But during school, I got involved in different pharmacy organizations. I was a part of the APHA student organization as well as Kappa Psi. And because I was still kind of in the younger years of school, I was also in a social sorority at the same time. There's lots of fun balancing of activities during that time as well. But during, again, all of that, I had kind of was transitioned to CVS Pharmacy as a student and was working. And I thought that was going to be where I ended up at some point in time. But I got the opportunity to have a couple of great ambulatory care experiences with Dr. Cameron Lindsay and Dr. Maureen Nell during school. And I was like, oh, this is what I really like to do. I like talking with patients. I like being on the side with the providers in there. And so really found what I felt was my niche in there. So I was talking to Dr. Val Reeder. I was like, should I do residency? She's like, why not? I was like, well, what about the money side? And she's like, you're still going to make money. And I was like, that's true. So I just went with it. I had, again, but had some leadership positions during pharmacy school and thought I had enough on my CV where I could at least try to go for it. I ended up applying to several residency programs around the Midwest area and luckily got matched to Cox Health, but unfortunately they had no ambulatory care activities at that point in time. I remember joking with the classmate that said, I said, I'm just going to start the ambulatory care experiences as a tongue-in-cheek comment. But little did I know it would actually be a kind of the truth with everything. I was able to become the first PGY2 resident at Cox when they started the ambulatory care program under Daniel Good himself. And I'm ever so grateful for Daniel because he was able to create that first ambulatory care position for me after I graduated from residency with a partnership with Stillcop at that point in time. After a few years, I got to become the residency director of that program, and I absolutely loved that position for 8 years and getting to work with residents who became pharmacists, ambulatory care practitioners across our country. And there, I just loved being connected with them and be able to help shape some of their careers in there. I ended up spending a total of about 12 years practicing at Cox Health within a family medicine residency clinic, working with the medically underserved. During that time, I precepted over 160 pharmacy students from different schools, pharmacy residents, and medical residents while I was there. So just really enjoyed all of that. But we moved to Kansas City about a year ago. I started working for St. Luke's within a couple of their primary care clinics. And there, this move allowed for us to be an hour and a half closer each way to my family and my husband's family in there as well. I am still in the population health field, working embedded within 2 primary care clinics. I spend most of my time managing diabetes and hypertension through a collaborative practice agreement. I'm also a resource with my team here. So it's kind of brought us here to the current moment in this space now.
Well, I know that Southwest Missouri definitely misses you being present down here, and the impact that you've had. It truly is a success story there of how you were able to progress through the residency to, like you said, literally carved out that role of being ambulatory care, and then role modeling that for so many other residents and so many students that came through. That is just such a great success story. And now you take that show on the road, right? We like to think that perhaps you'll send some students back towards Southwest Missouri so that they can come and experience pharmacy and residencies down this direction as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep suggesting people to do different types of pharmacy in there, and ambulatory care is obviously close to my heart. And there's kind of an army that's been created there in the Southwest Missouri area. So I like being able to suggest residency programs there in that area because I know they're led by some great individuals.
You mentioned being closer to your family now. You're just an hour and a half away from your parents and siblings. So tell us a little about your family. How large is your family grown now?
So my family, my immediate family has 2 children, and my husband in there. But now I am closer to my parents, both sides of my parents. I'm from a split household, and so the family, I joke about it being a big bush versus a tree. But because I just have step siblings and everything else in there. But I have so many family and relatives in the Sedalia area and outside of that that really helps me be connected. And then my husband's family is in the Kansas City area.
Yeah, I think we all know that part of the success of any good pharmacy leader is being well-grounded, right? And having that family support network. Tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that's another area where you have really role modeled the ability to be a working professional and a successful mother, husband, sister, the whole thing. Tell us more about how you've managed to balance that work and life and everything else.
So in addition to being the pharmacist, I am that wife and mother. I've been married to Terry for 12 years. We've been together for over 17. Haley's in 4th grade, Brett is in 1st grade, and so as kids get bigger, they start to get more involved in different activities and sports. Growing up, I played a lot myself, played a lot of softball and volleyball and a little bit of basketball eventually too. And so I found myself getting involved in a couple of coaching with my daughter, which is a whole new experience compared to what I do on a day-to-day basis, coaching a bunch of 9 and 10-year-old girls. Through the beginning, learning aspects of sports is very fun and challenging on a whole nother level, but I can't help but to want to encourage other girls to build their confidence while they're having fun along the way. I definitely don't think I would be able to balance everything near as well without the support of my husband. We take turns of taking the kids to the different activities in there. So like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, he gets to take the kids to a football practice, and I get to go oftentimes to the local community center and join a couple friends and do a workout here. But we wouldn't be able to do that kind of stuff without a calendar, which sometimes we have troubles without balancing that calendar on there, but really kind of helps us get everything accomplished. Personally, as a woman, I used to feel very pulled that I needed to try to do everything really well at 100%. And I've just come to realize that that's just not possible or realistic. So we got to take advantage of those different resources that are available, like grocery pickup and cleaning services, to make life easier for us. We use a before and after school program for the kids, for running errands whenever we can. You don't have to pick them up till 6 o'clock. So you're like, oh, I can probably go do this here for a minute. But also, we need time for the two of us. So we try to use friends and family, as well as a neighborhood girl, to try to help us get dates in there whenever we can in there. But I do think it's important to have a lot of self-care involved in there too. If you're not serving yourself, you can't really give to others very well. I make it a priority to try to get like a 20 to 30-minute morning workout in before everybody else wakes up in the morning. It'd be a little bit more challenging having the dogs and the kids under my feet while doing those workouts, but they do come and join me occasionally in there. But I think that working out's not just a physical health thing, it's a mental health thing as well, to be able to just keep my sanity. But to keep that divide between work and life, I've made it a purpose not to keep my work email on my personal phone. I used to do that and just felt obligated to look at it every time I heard it make a sound in there. But since that's been one of those things, I think I've positively made a change whenever I changed my job, to not put that on there, even being involved in organizations and whatnot. It's like, it can wait until tomorrow. So if I randomly think of something while I'm scrolling through social media or something, I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I'll just send myself a memo to follow up on it the next day whenever possible. I do still think that I feel like I know that I'm not even close to perfect on a lot of these roles that I have as an individual, but I do my best to be a good mom, wife, and pharmacist on most days. I always feel like I could do something better, like being a better friend, daughter, sister. But I'm very grateful that I have a good support system that really always understands that I may not always be the first to reach out, but I will always respond in a time frame whenever I am sitting down for 5 minutes to help get those things done.
Well, that is definitely to be admired. I think that the term self-care and self-hygiene is such a buzzword in the world, but sometimes we don't even think about date nights and workouts being part of the self-care, but it really is a part of that. And your ability to set aside time to do that is very admirable.
Well, thank you.
I know that my wife and I, that she's signed us up for the what is it called? The musical series at the local cultural house, right? So once a month we have a reason to go to dinner and then go see a musical down there with live entertainment, which is often very fun.
Yeah, I think that it's helpful, like, as if you don't have you have it pre-scheduled, you don't have to think about it on the time, the day of like, oh, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go eat? That sort of thing. So I was just talking about a friend that yesterday of just like, if you have something already planned on the schedule, then it's just built in, you're going to do it. So it's great to have that.
Yeah. And you mentioned the family calendar, right? I don't know how people did it before without having a Google calendar to make sure where the kids are supposed to be when.
Yes, it's very necessary to have that. And then when I don't, I'm like, did I share that with you? Because there'll be like something from Facebook on there, and my husband doesn't stay on Facebook. And I'm like, oh, I forgot to put it on there. He's like, Cassie, we have to do that.
Well, Vicki and I joke about the reason we have two kids is that we can still do a man-to-man defense, and we don't have to go into a zone defense with a third child.
Yeah, that would scare the daylights out of my husband trying to be in those many places. I used to think I wanted more than that, and he's like, aren't you glad that we don't do that? And as I very much admire those individuals who are able to spread themselves out even more so in there, it's crazy. I just have all the admirable thoughts of those people who are able to balance even more children.
So when it comes to coaching, right? You're coaching some of the kids now. Is there some equivalencies between coaching those 8-year-olds versus precepting pharmacy students? How have you translated some of those skill sets back into life?
I was laughing because I was having this moment with my daughter last week. And I was trying to encourage her to make some positive changes. And she was on one of those kicks of, "You're only telling me all the negative things, Mom." And I was like, "But I'm not. I'm also telling you that you're doing a great job, just like all the other girls on the court." And she wasn't listening to it. And so I was like, "All right, so when am I supposed to tell you how you can do things a little bit better?" And she's like, I don't know. I was like, "Well, I'm going to tell you, just like I do the rest of the girls, that, I'm going to give you that compliment sandwich." I'm not telling her compliment sandwich, but I'm working the whole compliment sandwich and like you to like tell them something positive. "All right, and here's what you could do better next time. All right, keep having fun, do a great job with things and keep trying." That's all I want, is for her to keep trying her best whenever she's doing those types of activities. And so she made me think about, well, apparently I need to ask everybody how they want to be appreciated. How do you want to be celebrated as a young person in there? Because maybe her style was a little bit different than some of the other girls, because the other girls like what I'm telling them, great job, making it a big deal. But she was thinking I was treating them like babies. But you just never know with kids. But there are some translatable things where you can give constructive feedback. But I do think like youth now, as compared to whenever I was going through sports, like you have to be really positive in those types of environments. Like you have to try to work your way in of giving that constructive feedback, but still like keeping a very optimistic run of everything to keep them engaged, keep them having fun along the way. So that's, you want people to still have fun and enjoy their experiences, like on rotations and everything, but you still want them to learn and get the job done. And there's certain skills that you need to have as a pharmacist. So there's been quite a few things, but just an entirely different age, it makes things a little bit different approaches.
And you mentioned earlier just accepting help. That's really one of the key traits, isn't it? And it's something that you do professionally, to accept help with your fellow preceptors and how you're able to utilize your students and residents to success, but also at home, mentioning how you use delivery and how you use housekeepers to bring in that piece so you can have that time with your family and be able to balance those things. That's very mature. That's a very good approach to life.
Yeah, and I don't think that you should be afraid to ask for help at any point in your career. I mean, even like ask the questions. Like as a new person on my team, like I've been doing this kind of role for a long time, so I wasn't necessarily concerned about being an ambulatory care pharmacist. But there's certain aspects of learning a whole new EMR or the resources in the area that, like, I think that was something like with maturity and experience, like you get comfortable not knowing all of the answers and needing to ask for help, and then be reminded, like, "Cassie, it's in the OneNote." I was like, I need to check that more often. So there's going to be times where you just have to ask for help. And I think that learned that it's okay to ask for help as early professionals is a great place to get started with that.
And that's really one of your leadership strengths, I think. And you've demonstrated that through your leadership through MSHP, your committee leadership through MPA, and now you're doing even things on the national level. Your ability to lead others, get them engaged, make those bold requests for help, but then also the ability to accept that help. I think that's, again, another way that you've role modeled that leadership for us.
Well, thank you.
So tell me more about the professional association activity, because sometimes, that's the hardest part, right? When you get done doing your 50-hour-a-week job and you get done doing your 60-hour-a-week home life, and it's like, do I have time to be on a call for a society? Do I have time to drive to St. Louis for a meeting? How do you weave that into your family's life?
Yeah, honestly, I still do quite a bit of it during the workday. In there, I do feel like me being involved in professional organizations is a way to market my organization that I work at. So it says St. Luke's, and at the former it had Cox Health everywhere. So Cox Health's name was everywhere with my involvement with different activities in there. I will not say I spend of my hours at work dedicated to that. I fit it in where I can and kind of adjust my schedule one way or the other on there to be able to do that. So there will be some Saturdays, for strategic planning or conferences and everything that I'll definitely have to work out in advance with my husband, like when we're going to how we're going to arrange that, because mid-year is coming up for ASHP, and as a state president of MSHP, I get invited to some different ASHP activities in there. And so I was really excited that my job was going to let me go to that conference, to be able to do that. And it's going to be a week for my husband and getting all of the activities by himself, but we'll get it figured out.
It's good for him, right? It's good to have absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
Why is that important for you professionally to be involved in those state societies? Oftentimes you run into, especially younger students, like, I don't have time for that. My boss will take care of that. I'm trying to get my life together. Why? You've been involved since the very first day. Why is that important for you?
I think I'm going to talk about it broadly and then come back down to the state level. I appreciate that my line of work lets me have that flexibility for patient outreach. I've had managers that are, again, supportive of my involvement in those organizations as long as I get my work done. I wouldn't be able to get involved as much without that kind of structure in there, which can make it a little bit trickier for different pharmacists out there, depending on their schedule. But I definitely use my Outlook calendar at work as well. And I keep a written calendar of the week of the daily tasks I want to accomplish. When I have meetings, when I have patient visits, I think this personally helps me figure out where I can fit in some of those other tasks, like creating social media images or prepping for a presentation for a webinar for one of the organizations in there. I feel like getting involved in pharmacy organizations allows me to not only advocate for myself, but my colleagues and my patients. If something could make the lives of others easier, I'm not afraid of sharing my personal experience or throwing out new ideas on how you can approach a problem. I also feel more engaged with being in an organization. If I'm active in a committee, I feel like I'm getting more out of it. I'm not just paying the money, I'm getting something in return in there. But because I like to talk and throw out those ideas, I have found myself either volunteering or being asked to be a leader, like a chair of different committees or organizations. But I think it's important that you only agree to it if you feel like you can make a valuable difference. But I really enjoy getting to work with pharmacists all across our state and country. I just did an ASHP presentation this week with a colleague out of Sacramento, California. So it's like, how cool can it be that you get to help educate other people about diabetes distress with working with another pharmacist like that? But when it comes back down to our state specifically, I feel like AmCare in our state fits in a bubble that kind of crosses across the spectrums with both community and acute care. And so I want to remain connected to all pharmacists because I feel like it takes all of us to make the pharmacy world go round. I like to bridge that gap. Like I said, I'm a doer. I like to stay involved in those different committees in there. So I've been on the CE committee for MPA, and I'm on the social media website committee for MSHP, in addition to being president in there. And we have a programming committee that I also get to help shape for our upcoming conference there. But I like to create those resources and presentations. Like I see conferences and whatnot, like I really wish there was this topic there, or this that there would be this webinar over that. And so I found myself, well, if I don't see it, I should probably just offer to do it. Like maybe I can share it with somebody else that I know, or throw out the idea to see who wants to help with that. But also in these involvements with the MSHP and MPA, I've been able to help others create their collaborative practice agreements, be able to build up their ambulatory care experiences, or help potential residents find new programs there. But I love connecting people with doing similar work. And so I got a text message from somebody just this last week that like I had really tried to like pull her into Cox Health to work in our AmCare sites. And she texted me and she's like, I got a job there, and it was just really felt good on my heart to be able to still help her connect that place that I knew she would be a great fit to the team, but being able to connect her with that's great. But I think it's also good, like if I have a question or somebody else asks me a question and I don't know the answer, I like having people to go to in there. When it comes to MSHP, I was invited to join MSHP as a resident from both you and Diane McClaskey, who is my beloved PGY1 residency director.
Nice shout out to Diane.
Always the work mom, always loved chatting with her. I was able to make those meaningful contributions from the beginning of my membership with MSHP. And after watching you and Diane being both my personal mentors, I saw you guys have great leadership modeling with holding the president role for MSHB. So I knew one day that I wanted to do it. And the time finally came when I was invited to run from another friend and past president, Christina Stafford. But, it's just a timing thing of making sure I didn't put myself too far in right there at the beginning of everything. But it was the right time. But in summary, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about getting involved, and it fills my bucket to remain happy with my career choice.
Well, I love that you use those two words, engagement and committed. I think that's so key to the success, right? Oftentimes people will join a society just to have it on the resume or otherwise be able to attend a meeting, but you definitely jump in with both feet. You're not only engaged, but you're committed and committed to helping others be successful as well. And that's definitely one of your strengths that we need to celebrate.
Thank you.
So tell us then, what is your advice for that next generation? If you were able to give, and you do, right? You have students, you have residents. What is the advice you give them for going forward in their professional career?
I love any opportunity to share advice for new practitioners as a former residency director. And I love staying connected with my past residents. I love when they text or call me asking a question or giving me an update on life. But it's sad that I feel like pharmacy's gotten kind of a bad reputation with seeing pharmacists getting put in poor situations and supportive work environments, those low reimbursements for PBMs, closing those pharmacies that have great patient care there. And then, COVID was the icing on the cake that's really heightened burnout to a whole other level that caused people to leave the field altogether. Honestly, I can't imagine my life not being a pharmacist. I love being a pharmacist and being able to help patients and providers and learners. I feel most people become pharmacists to help people out. There are so many types of careers within pharmacy that students and residents should explore different areas to see what they enjoy most. You should pick an area that you feel fulfilled and excited about. Your situation may change in the future, and it's okay to change what you want to do if you're no longer happy doing it. And be open to other opportunities. You never know when something's going to connect or how your skills and strengths kind of help you identify those different areas. But once you find that area of pharmacy that you're passionate about, I think you should explore that further because again, there's going to just be more fulfillment in general. But once you have that fulfillment area of where you're practicing on a day-to-day basis, I think it's good to find a professional home within a pharmacy organization, and not only to get connected with those specific resources connected to your field, but other people like yourself in there. And so I usually tell my past residents that, get involved, take advantage of those discounted membership rates in there, get a taste of what it's like, and see if you like it. And then once you kind of get an idea with it, go ahead and put yourself out there for a committee. The worst they can say is no, and you could try again the next year, and that timing might be better. But I think that, getting involved in those different organizations helps open up, how to be able to work smarter and not harder on a regular basis once you kind of have other people like yourself. But I also think it's really important that your life shouldn't only be defined as being a pharmacist. You should find things outside of pharmacy, and that shouldn't just be your family. Your family will definitely cause some great enjoyment for yourself. But find things like traveling, reading, whatever it is that you're passionate about, and keeping your life happy in general. So you can work hard on a day-to-day basis as being a pharmacist, but you can still play harder, which just makes life more fulfilling in there, which helps you prevent that burnout later in your career. So lots of little nuggets in there.
That is a great exclamation point to our conversation today, Cassie. Thank you for bringing that forward. And thank you for what you've done to advance the profession of pharmacy, not just in your work setting, but across the state of Missouri, and now spreading across the country as well with your involvement on the national associations. It's been fun talking with you today. It's been fun watching your career go forward and blossom. It's been a good time.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and excited to see all the other people that get to do these great podcasts and share their different nuggets of life for being a pharmacist as well.
And to our Pharmacy Frontier podcast listeners, thank you for joining us today. We encourage you to share this podcast with your friends, and we encourage you to seek out the previous podcast of the Pharmacy Frontiers episodes on your favorite podcasting app. Until next time, remember, it's a good day to be in pharmacy.